The steady beep of the heart monitor matched the pounding in my chest as I stared at my phone screen, the banking app showing a balance that couldn't possibly be right. $0. 0 cents. My vision blurred as the medication made it difficult to focus, but the number didn't change. Our joint savings account, the one containing our house down payment, our emergency fund, our future, was completely empty. And my husband David wasn't answering his phone. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. 3 days earlier, I'd undergone a complicated spinal surgery. The chronic pain that had ruled my life for years was finally addressed, but recovery would be long and painful. David had been by my bedside that morning, kissing my forehead, promising to check in later. He never did. Now, lying in my hospital bed with an IV in my arm and surgical staples in my back, I was discovering why. My name is Emma Chen. Before I found myself in a hospital bed staring at an empty bank account, I was living what I thought was a good life. Financial analyst at Evergreen Financial Group, married for 7 years to David, a charismatic marketing executive with a talent for making everyone feel special. We had our modern townhouse in Seattle's Queen Anne neighborhood, weekend hiking trips to the Cascades, and dreams of starting a family once we'd bought our forever home. I prided myself on my meticulous planning. Our investment portfolio was diversified, our savings substantial, our future secured. At least that's what I believed until that Tuesday afternoon when Dr. Patel came by for a post-op check. "Your recovery is looking good, Emma," she said, making notes on her tablet. "But your blood pressure's elevated. Are you feeling stressed? About something?" I wanted to laugh. Stressed? I'd just discovered our account had been emptied while I was under anesthesia. My husband had vanished, but I simply nodded, unwilling to share the humiliating truth. "Just surgery stuff," I lied. After Dr. Patel left, I tried David's phone again, straight to voicemail. I checked our other accounts. Checking account nearly emptied except for a few $100s. Credit cards maxed out. Over $300,000 gone. 7 years of careful saving wiped out while I was unconscious on an operating table. My phone lit up with an incoming call. My mother's name flashed on the screen. I hesitated before answering, dreading having to explain what I didn't yet understand myself. "Emma? Honey? Are you alone?" My mother's voice was tight, controlled in that way that always meant bad news. "Yes," I answered, my mouth suddenly dry. "Why?" Her hesitation stretched across the line. "There's something you need to know. Your father and we saw David yesterday." I gripped the phone tighter. "Where? He's not answering my calls." "At Emerald Bay Restaurant. He wasn't alone, Emma." The room seemed to tilt sideways as my mother continued, her voice fading in and out as she described how they'd gone to celebrate my father's retirement with a nice dinner, only to spot David in a corner booth with a young woman. They'd watched, in disbelief as David had leaned across the table, kissing the woman's hand, both of them laughing, oblivious to the world around them, oblivious to my parents sitting just across the room. "We confronted him," my mother said. "He seemed surprised but not ashamed. He introduced her as Vanessa, said she was his colleague. But Emma, the way they were together." I closed my eyes, remembering Vanessa from David's company. Christmas party. Tall, effortlessly beautiful, hanging on his every word. David had introduced her as a new team member, someone he was mentoring. I'd thought nothing of it then. "Did he mention me at all?" I asked, hating how small my voice sounded. Another pause. "He said you were doing fine after your surgery, that he'd just visited you." The lie cut deeper than the surgical incision in my back. David hadn't visited me since that morning. He'd been with her while I lay here, alone and in pain, Mom, I need to tell you something, I said, my voice steadier than I expected. Our accounts are empty. All of them. My mother's gasp told me she understood the magnitude. My parents had always been financially prudent, teaching me the value of saving, of preparing for emergencies. They'd helped us with the down payment for our townhouse, proud of how responsibly we'd managed our finances. That's not possible, she said. Your father just saw David take out his credit card to pay for a very expensive bottle of champagne. Not his card, I said, the realization dawning on me. Mine. After I hung up, I lay back against the hospital pillows, my mind racing despite the fog of painkillers. The betrayal wasn't just emotional. It was calculated, premeditated. David had timed his move precisely, knowing I'd be incapacitated, unable to immediately respond. A memory surfaced, David insisting on handling our online banking after my previous password had been compromised in a data breach. Let me take care of this for you, he'd said. You've got enough on your plate with work and preparing for surgery. I'd handed over my login credentials without a second thought. My husband, my partner, the man I trusted with everything. My phone pinged with a text from my mother. Your father and I are coming. Don't do anything until we get there. But I couldn't wait. I needed answers. With trembling fingers, I called David's office. Apex Marketing, how may I direct your call? The receptionist's cheerful voice felt like an affront. This is Emma Chen. I need to speak with my husband, David Chen. Oh. The receptionist's tone shifted. Mrs. Chen, I'm sorry, but David took a leave of absence. He submitted the paperwork last week, said he needed time off for family matters. Family matters. The phrase hung in the air like a mockery. I thanked her and hung up, my mind piecing together the timeline. Last week, while I was preoccupied with pre-surgical appointments and anxiety, David had been plotting his exit. The bio. Nurse came in to check my vitals, frowning at the monitor. Your heart rate's elevated, Mrs. Chen. Are you in pain? Pain didn't begin to describe what I was feeling. But I nodded, accepting the additional medication she offered, hoping it might dull not just the physical ache but the emotional one tearing through me. As the medication began to take effect, my analytical mind, the one that had made me successful in my career, began to assert itself through the haze of betrayal. This wasn't just about David's affair. This was theft. This was fraud. And regardless of our marital status, there were laws against what he'd done. I reached for my phone again, but this time I didn't call David. I called Sofia Rodriguez, my best friend since college and, more importantly, an attorney specializing in family law. Emma? Aren't you supposed to be resting after surgery? Sophia's concerned voice was like a lifeline. I need your help, I said, surprised by the steadiness in my voice, and I need you to not ask questions until I've told you everything. By the time I finished explaining, Sophia's professional demeanor had taken over. I'm coming to the hospital now, she said, and I'm bringing my laptop. We need to document everything while it's happening. What can we even do? I asked. His name is on the accounts, too. Being a joint account holder doesn't give him the right to empty accounts without your knowledge, especially not when you're incapacitated. And using your credit cards without permission? That's straightforward. Fraud. Her voice softened. Emma, this isn't just a marital dispute. This is criminal, and we're going to make sure he doesn't get away with it. After Sophia hung up, I stared at the ceiling, the gravity of my situation settling over me. In the span of a few hours, my entire life had imploded. My marriage was a lie. My finances were in ruins. My body was broken. But something else was stirring beneath the shock and pain. Something I hadn't expected to feel. Anger. Cold, clarifying anger. David thought he'd picked the perfect time to betray me, when I was at my most vulnerable, physically unable to fight back. He'd clearly underestimated who he was dealing with. I might be temporarily confined to this hospital bed, but my mind was awakening to a harsh new reality, and I was already calculating how to respond. My phone buzzed with an incoming text. I expected it to be my parents or Sophia, but instead, a number I didn't recognize appeared on the screen. The message was short. "Emma, it's Vanessa. We need to talk." I stared at the message, my finger hovering over the delete button. The audacity of this woman, reaching out to me now. But then my analytical mind took over again. Knowledge was power, and right now I needed all the power I could get. I typed back a single word. "When?" Her response came immediately. "Now, can I call you?" I glanced at the time. My parents wouldn't arrive for another hour. Sophia was on her way but stuck in Seattle traffic. I had time to hear what David's Mistress had to say. I texted back, "Yes." The phone rang seconds later. I answered, but said nothing, waiting. "Emma?" Vanessa's voice was higher than I remembered, tight with tension. "I don't know if you remember me. I work with David." "I remember you," I said flatly. "What do you want?" She exhaled shakily. I think I've made a terrible mistake. David told me you two were separated, that you'd agreed to divorce months ago but were keeping it quiet until after your surgery." The laugh that escaped me sounded foreign to my own ears. Well, that's news to me. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Considering we were planning our future together right up until I went under anesthesia. "Oh God," she whispered. "I'm so sorry. I swear I didn't know. He said you'd already divided your assets, that you'd agreed he could take his share." My grip tightened on the phone. "His share isn't everything we owned, Vanessa." "I know that now," she said, her voice catching. "That's why I'm calling. Last night he was celebrating, drinking too much, talking about a fresh start, how we could go anywhere, do anything. When I asked about money, he showed me his bank app, the deposits. Emma, it was a lot of money. And when I questioned him, he got angry, said you owed him for wasting years of his life." The monitoring machine beside me began beeping more rapidly as my pulse accelerated. A nurse poked her head in, but I waved her away. "Where is he now?" I asked. "I don't know," Vanessa admitted. "We had a fight when I realized what he'd done. He stormed out. But Emma, there's something else you should know." I waited, bracing myself. Before he left, he was booking flights to Bali, one way. Tickets. The final piece clicked into place. David wasn't just running away with our money. He was planning to disappear somewhere with limited extradition, making it nearly impossible to recover what he'd stolen. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked, suspicious of her sudden attack. "Of conscience." Her voice hardened. "Because I'm not going to be collateral damage in his scheme. He lied to me, used me, and I'm guessing I'm not the first. You don't deserve what he's doing to you, and I don't want any part of it." After she hung up, I lay back against the pillows, processing this new information. David was planning to flee the country. The timeline had just accelerated dramatically. I needed to act, hospital bed or not. I picked up my phone and made another call, this time to my cousin Jessica, who worked at First Pacific Credit Union. "Jess," I said when she answered, "I need an enormous favor." By the time my parents arrived, looking worried and angry in equal measure, I had already set several wheels in motion. Sophia arrived minutes later, laptop under her arm, her expression shifting to professional concern when she saw my parents. "Emma, what's going on?" my father asked, his normally calm demeanor frayed at the edges. "Your mother told me about the accounts? But surely there's some mistake." I shook my head. "No mistake, Dad. David emptied everything while I was in surgery. And according to his mistress, who just called me, he's planning to leave the country." My mother gasped, reaching for my hand. "Oh, Emma." Sophia opened her laptop. "I've already started drafting emergency documents. We need to file for an immediate freeze on all accounts and a temporary restraining order to prevent him from leaving the country." My father's expression darkened. "I'll call Detective Reyes. He still owes me a favor from that charity fundraiser." As they mobilized around me, I felt a strange sense of calm settling over me. The initial shock was fading, replaced by a cold determination. David had betrayed me in every way possible, timed his attack when I was at my weakest, and planned to vanish with everything we'd built together. But he'd made one critical error in his calculations. He'd assumed I would be too broken, physically and emotionally, to fight back. He'd forgotten who I was, what I was capable of. He'd forgotten that I analyzed risk for a living, that I could see 5 moves ahead on any financial chessboard. Most importantly, he'd forgotten that I wasn't alone. As my parents and Sophia discussed strategy, my phone pinged with a message from Jessica. "Emergency hold placed on all outgoing international transfers from your accounts. Manager approved based on suspected fraud. Police report number needed within 24 hours to maintain hold." I showed the message to Sophia, who nodded approvingly. "Good. That buys us time." My father was on his phone with Detective Reyes, his voice low and urgent. My mother sat beside my bed, her hand clutching mine, her eyes fierce with protective anger. "We'll fix this," she promised. "He won't get away with it." I squeezed her hand, drawing strength from her conviction. "I know," I said, and for the first time since I'd seen that zero balance, I actually believed it. The surgery that was supposed to fix my chronic pain had left me temporarily vulnerable, but it had also given me something unexpected. A clear view of the truth. The pain of David's betrayal was excruciating, but unlike my spinal condition, this was something I could fight. This was something I would overcome. As the medication pulled me toward sleep, I made a silent promise to myself. When this was over, David would regret ever thinking he could take advantage of me. And I would emerge stronger than he could possibly imagine. My last conscious thought before drifting off was the realization that in trying to destroy me, David had inadvertently set me free. I woke to the gentle pressure of a hand on my shoulder. Sophia stood beside my bed, her expression a mixture of concern and determination. The digital clock on the wall read 6:23 a.m. I'd slept through the night, my body demanding rest despite everything happening around me. "There's been a development," Sophia said quietly, placing her laptop on my adjustable table. "Detective Reyes acted on the information we provided. They found David's car at SeaTac Airport long-term parking." My stomach clenched. "He's already gone?" "No." Sophia's mouth curved into a small, satisfied smile. "He tried to board a flight to Jakarta last night, but the emergency alert your cousin Jessica helped us file had already been processed. TSA detained him at the gate." A strange mixture of emotions washed over me. Relief that he hadn't escaped, anger that he'd tried, and something else. A cold satisfaction that his plan had failed so completely. "Where is he now?" I asked, pushing myself up against the pillows, wincing as the movement pulled at my surgical incision. "Being questioned by the Financial Crimes Unit. Your father's friend expedited things." Sophia opened her laptop. "We need to capitalize on this moment, Emma. Right now, David doesn't know exactly what we know or what legal actions we've already taken. That gives us leverage." I nodded, my analyst's mind already calculating the optimal strategy. "What do you recommend?" "We file everything today. Divorce petition, emergency order to freeze all remaining assets, criminal charges for fraud and theft." She turned the laptop toward me, showing a series of prepared legal documents. "I've been working on these since yesterday. All they need is your signature." I stared at the screen, the reality of what we were doing hitting me anew. After 7 years of marriage, it would end like this. with legal documents and criminal charges, not with tears or counseling or even a fight, with the cold, hard reality of fraud and betrayal. Do it, I said. Sophia nodded, turning the laptop back toward herself. There's one more thing, your health insurance. The realization hit me like a physical blow. My health insurance was through David's employer. The spinal surgery that had finally addressed years of chronic pain, the very reason I was in this hospital bed, had cost well over $200,000. A surgery that might not be covered if David had indeed taken family leave, or worse, resigned his position entirely. I hadn't even thought of that, I admitted, fresh anxiety washing over me. I did, Sophia said. That's why I contacted Apex Marketing's HR department yesterday evening. I may have implied I was calling on behalf of both you and David to ensure continuity of coverage during your medical crisis. And? Your procedure was pre-authorized and processed before any changes to his employment status. They can't retroactively deny the claim. She paused. But going forward, we need to get you onto your own insurance plan as soon as possible. I exhaled slowly. Thank you. A soft knock at the door interrupted us. My mother entered, carrying a small duffel bag. I brought you some things from home, she said, setting the bag on the chair beside my bed. Fresh clothes, your toiletry kit, your tablet. Her expression darkened. I had to use my key. The locks have been changed. I blinked, processing this new information. He changed the locks on our house? My mother nodded, her lips pressed into a thin line. When your father and I arrived, the security code didn't work either. We had to call the property management company. The calculated nature of David's betrayal continued to unfold like a poisonous flower. He hadn't just taken our money. He had systematically locked me out of my own home while I was literally unconscious on an operating table. The property manager was very helpful once I explained the situation, my mother continued. Apparently, David told them you had separated and that you'd agreed he would keep the townhouse. He had paperwork, forged obviously. They've restored our access and noted the potential fraud in their records. Anger flared hot and bright within me. Every new revelation exposed another layer of David's treachery. This wasn't an impulsive act of betrayal. This was calculated, methodical. He had planned everything, using my surgery as the perfect cover to dismantle our entire life together and disappear. Dr. Patel chose that moment to enter, clipboard in hand. She glanced around the room, taking in the tense atmosphere. My mother's tight expression, Sophia's open laptop displaying legal documents. How are we feeling today, Emma? She asked, maintaining her professional demeanor despite the obvious tension. Physically or emotionally? I replied with a wry smile. Dr. Patel's expression softened. Both, if you're willing to share. I appreciated her directness. Physically, the pain is manageable. Emotionally, I trailed off, gesturing vaguely at the laptop. Dr. Patel nodded, moving to check my incision. The nursing staff mentioned there was some excitement yesterday. I need to emphasize that stress can significantly impact your recovery. Your body needs rest and stability to heal properly. I understand, I said, but circumstances have made that difficult. She examined my surgical site carefully before responding. The surgery went exceptionally well, Emma. The nerve decompression was successful, and I'm confident you'll experience significant pain relief once you've healed. But that healing process requires care and attention. How soon can I be discharged? I asked. Dr. Patel frowned. We planned for 5 days post-op given the complexity of the procedure. It's only been 2. I need to be out of here as soon as possible, I said firmly. I have serious matters to address. She studied me for a moment, clearly weighing medical concerns against my determination. The earliest I could possibly Consider discharge would be tomorrow afternoon, and only if you have proper support at home. You'll need assistance with basic tasks, medication management, and transportation to follow up appointments. You cannot be alone. My mother stepped forward. She won't be. My husband and I will stay with her. Not at our house, I interjected quickly. It's complicated at the moment. My mother nodded. She'll come to our house in Bellevue. We have a ground floor guest room, no stairs to navigate. Dr. Patel made notes on her clipboard. I'll need to adjust your discharge plan and home care instructions. And I want to see you in my office next week. No exceptions. She looked up, her expression softening slightly. Whatever you're dealing with, Emma, please remember that your health has to come first. This surgery was necessary to prevent permanent nerve damage. Don't jeopardize its success. After she left, Sophia closed her laptop. She's right, Emma. David's in custody for now. The financial holds are in place. Taking one more day to focus on your recovery won't change the legal situation. I sighed, recognizing the wisdom in their words. Fine, one more day. My mother squeezed my hand. Good. Now there's something else we need to discuss. She pulled out her phone, scrolling to find something. Your brother Marcus has been trying to reach you. He's concerned. Marcus, my younger brother who had never liked David, who had seen through the charm to something beneath that I had deliberately ignored. The brother I had defended David to, even when Marcus had tried to warn me about inconsistencies in David's stories, about the times he'd caught David in small lies that I'd dismissed as misunderstandings. Does he know? I asked. Not everything, my mother replied. Just that you're in the hospital and that there are marital issues. He wants to come see you. I closed my eyes briefly. Marcus worked for a software company in Portland. Him coming to Seattle meant taking time off, making the 3-hour drive north. Tell him not yet. Let me get discharged first. I'll call him tonight. My mother nodded, typing a response to Marcus. As she did, a nurse entered with my morning medications and breakfast tray. The rhythm of hospital routine continued, indifferent, to the chaos of my personal life. There was something strangely comforting in that. The world continued to turn, shifts changed, meals arrived, vital signs were checked, regardless of betrayal or heartbreak. After taking my medication, I turned to Sophia. What's likely to happen with David now? She leaned back in her chair, shifting to her professional mode. He's facing potential charges for financial fraud, identity theft, and possibly grand larceny, depending on how the prosecutor wants to frame it. The evidence is substantial. The timing of the withdrawals during your surgery, the flight booking, the changed locks, the forged documents for the property management company. It shows clear intent. Will they keep him in custody? That depends on several factors. The prosecutor will request remand without bail, given the flight risk he clearly presents. However, if he has a good attorney, they might argue for house arrest with an ankle monitor. She paused. Either way, he's not going to Bali anytime soon. I nodded, taking small comfort in that knowledge. And our finances? That's more complicated, Sophia admitted. The emergency freeze we put in place will prevent further withdrawals. But recovering what's already been taken will take time. We'll need forensic accountants to trace where the money went. A thought occurred to me. Vanessa might know something. She said he showed her his banking app, was boasting about the money. Sophia made a note on her phone. Good point. I'll contact her today. She might be willing to provide a statement, especially if she realizes she could be implicated as an accessory. My mother, who had been listening quietly, spoke up. What about your job, Emma? You were supposed to be on medical leave for 6 weeks. Another complication I hadn't fully considered. My position at Evergreen Financial Group was secure, but I had planned my medical leave with the assumption that I'd be recovering peacefully at home, with David handling household tasks, and driving me to follow-up appointments. Now I faced a very different reality, a legal battle, financial investigation, and divorce proceedings, all while trying to recover from major surgery. "I need to call my boss," I said, reaching for my phone. "Alex should know what's happening, at least the basics." Sophia nodded. "Good idea. The more transparent you are with your employer, the more accommodating they're likely to be." I dialed Alex Bennett's direct line, steeling myself for a difficult conversation. Alex had been my mentor since I joined Evergreen 5 years ago, promoting me twice and fighting for my advancement within the firm. He answered on the second ring. "Emma, how are you feeling? How did the surgery go?" His concern sounded genuine. "The surgery went well," I said, choosing my words carefully. "But I've encountered some unexpected personal complications." There was a brief pause. "What kind of complications?" I took a deep breath. "My husband emptied our accounts while I was in surgery. He was caught trying to leave the country last night. I'm filing for divorce and pressing charges for fraud." Alex's shocked silence spoke volumes. When he finally responded, his voice had hardened. "Jesus, Emma, are you okay? Do you need anything?" The simple kindness in the question nearly broke my carefully maintained composure. "I'm managing," I said, my voice steady through sheer force of will. "But I wanted you to know that my recovery situation has changed significantly. I still plan to take the 6 weeks of medical leave we discussed, but I'll also be dealing with legal proceedings during that time." "Don't worry about work right now," Alex said firmly. "Focus on your health and sorting out this situation. If you need more time, we'll make it work." "Thank you," I said, genuinely grateful for his understanding. "There's one more thing. My health insurance was through David's employer. I'll need to switch to Evergreen's plan as soon as possible." "I'll have HR contact you today," Alex promised. "They can process an emergency enrollment given the circumstances." He paused. "Emma, I'm so sorry this is happening to you. If there's anything I or the firm can do, please let me know." After hanging up, I leaned back against the pillows, exhausted despite having just woken up. The medication made my thoughts slightly fuzzy around the edges, but beneath the haze, my analytical mind continued working, examining angles, identifying vulnerabilities, formulating plans. My phone buzzed with an incoming text. "Unknown number." I opened it, already suspecting who it might be. "Emma, please, this is all a misunderstanding. I never intended to leave you. Let's talk before you do something we'll both regret. David." A cold laugh escaped me as I showed the message to Sophia and my mother. "He was literally caught boarding an international flight with all our money," I said incredulously. "How exactly is that a misunderstanding?" Sophia's expression hardened. "This is good. It shows he's desperate. Don't respond. Every communication should go through legal channels now." I nodded, blocking the number. "He'll try my email next, or send someone to talk to me." "We've already notified hospital security," my mother said. "They have instructions to allow only approved visitors to your room." A knock at the door made us all turn. A nurse I hadn't seen before stood in the doorway. "Mrs. Chen? Sorry to interrupt, but there's a woman insisting on seeing you. Says her name is Vanessa Morris. She's quite upset. Security is with her now." I exchanged glances with Sophia, who nodded slightly. "I'll go speak with her," Sophia said, standing. "Find out what she wants before we decide if you should see her." While Sophia went to intercept Vanessa, my mother helped me to the bathroom, supporting me as I slowly shuffled across the room, IV pole in tow. The simplest tasks had become monumental challenges, my body a landscape of pain and restriction. The contrast between my physical vulnerability and the mental strength I needed to navigate this crisis wasn't lost on me. By the time I settled, back in bed, Sophia had returned, her expression thoughtful. "She's legitimately distraught," Sophia reported. Says David called her from detention, told her to get to you before, and I quote, "You ruin everything with your overreaction." She claims she refused to help him and wants to make amends by telling you everything she knows. I considered this. Do you believe her? Sophia shrugged. Hard to say. She seems genuine, but she also had an affair with your husband, so her judgment is questionable at best. I weighed the potential benefits against the emotional cost of facing one of the architects of my pain. Bring her in, but stay with me. Vanessa appeared nothing like the confident, glamorous woman I remembered from the Christmas party. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her hair pulled back in a hasty ponytail, her designer clothes from yesterday replaced with worn jeans and a plain sweater. She hovered uncertainly in the doorway until I gestured for her to enter. "Thank you for seeing me," she said quietly, not quite meeting my eyes. "I know I'm probably the last person you want to talk to right now." "You're not," I replied evenly. "That would be my husband." A ghost of a smile touched her lips before fading. "Fair enough." She fidgeted with the strap of her purse. "David called me this morning. He wanted me to come here and convince you that this was all a big misunderstanding, that he never meant to hurt you. And yet here you are, apparently not following his instructions," I observed. Vanessa looked up then, finally meeting my gaze. "Because it's bullshit. All of it. He knew exactly what he was doing, and so did I." She swallowed hard. "I believed him when he said you were already separated, that the divorce was just a formality you were delaying. I believed him because I wanted to. But when I saw how much money he'd transferred, when he started talking about disappearing together, I knew something wasn't right." My mother, who had remained silent until now, spoke up. "Why should we believe anything you say? You participated in this deception." Vanessa nodded, accepting the accusation. "You shouldn't trust me. I wouldn't, in your position. But I can give you information that might help." She reached into her purse and withdrew a small notebook. "David keeps records of everything: accounts, passwords, contacts. He's meticulous about it. Always said you can't trust digital records. That paper can't be hacked." She held out the notebook. "I found this in his apartment last night when I went to get my things. It's all in here. Where he moved the money, who helped him, everything." I stared at the notebook, not reaching for it. "You broke into his apartment?" Vanessa shook her head. "I didn't break in. I have a key. I spent my final night in the hospital reviewing the contents of David's notebook, a roadmap of betrayal inked in his precise handwriting. Each page revealed another layer of his deception: account numbers for offshore holdings I never knew existed, contacts with names I didn't recognize, detailed plans for his new life that apparently had been in development for months. The notebook confirmed what I had suspected, but couldn't fully accept until now. David's betrayal hadn't been a momentary lapse or an opportunistic impulse. He had engineered this meticulously, calculating each move with the same attention to detail that had once made me admire him. "This is exactly what we needed," Sophia said, photographing each page before placing the notebook in a sealed evidence bag. "Between this and Vanessa's statement, we have a solid case for financial fraud." "Do you think she's telling the truth? About not knowing his full plan until now?" my mother asked, skepticism evident in her voice. She had remained distrustful of Vanessa throughout our unexpected meeting, maintaining a cool distance while I spoke with the woman who had been my husband's accomplice. Sophia considered the question. "It's possible. David seems to have compartmentalized his life effectively, keeping different pieces of information from different people. Classic manipulation technique." She glanced at me. "What's your assessment?" I thought about Vanessa's demeanor, the genuine shock in her eyes when she spoke of discovering the extent of his scheme. I think she was played too, differently than me, but still manipulated. She believed what she wanted to believe, just like I did. My mother huffed softly, unconvinced but unwilling to argue. Well, regardless of her intentions, at least we have this information now. Dr. Patel arrived early the next morning for my final evaluation, her expression serious as she examined my surgical site. The incision is healing well. No signs of infection or unusual swelling. She helped me sit up, checking my range of motion and neurological responses. How's the pain level today? Manageable, I replied. About a 4 out of 10 with the medication. She nodded, making notes on her tablet. I'm going to approve your discharge, but with strict conditions. She fixed me with a stern look. Absolutely no lifting anything over 5 pounds. No bending, twisting, or stretching. No driving while on pain medication. Follow-up appointment in my office next Tuesday. Without fail. She glanced at my mother. You'll ensure she follows these restrictions? My mother nodded solemnly. She'll be closely supervised. My husband and I have already prepared the house for her recovery. Dr. Patel handed me a thick packet of discharge instructions and prescriptions. Your body has undergone significant trauma, Emma. The surgery was successful, but recovery is a gradual process. Push too hard too soon, and you risk compromising everything we accomplished. I felt a sudden wave of gratitude for this woman who had skillfully repaired the damaged discs that had caused me years of chronic pain. I understand, and thank you for everything. She offered a rare smile. You're welcome. I'll see you next week. She turned to leave, then paused. And Emma, whatever else is happening in your life right now, try to find moments of peace. Stress and tension will only slow your healing. As Dr. Patel left, Sophia entered, looking tired but triumphant. Detective Reyes called, based on the evidence. From the notebook and Vanessa's statement, they're charging David with multiple felonies: fraud, grand theft, identity theft. The DA is pushing for no bail given the flight risk. A complex emotion washed over me. Not quite satisfaction, but something adjacent to it. When's the arraignment? Tomorrow morning, Sophia replied. You don't need to be there. In fact, given your condition, I'd strongly advise against it. I shook my head firmly. I need to be there. I need to look him in the eye. Sophia and my mother exchanged concerned glances. Emma, honey, my mother began. You're being discharged today. You need rest, not the stress of a courtroom. I won't rest anyway, I countered, not knowing it's happening, imagining what he's saying, how he's spinning this. I met Sophia's gaze directly. I need to be there. We can manage it. Sophia sighed, recognizing my determination. If you're absolutely set on this, we'll make arrangements. Your father can drive us. We'll get you a wheelchair. Minimize the physical strain. By noon, I was officially discharged, the hospital wheelchair carrying me to my father's waiting SUV. The journey to my parents' house in Bellevue passed in a haze of medication and exhaustion. I vaguely registered the careful way my father navigated. Speed bumps and turns to minimize jolting my tender spine, the quiet conversation between my parents in the front seat, the changing landscape as we crossed Lake Washington. My parents had transformed their ground-floor guest room into a recovery sanctuary. Hospital-grade adjustable bed, nightstand arranged with medications and water, a small refrigerator stocked with healthy snacks, even a bell to summon help if needed. The sliding glass door opened onto their garden patio, allowing fresh air and natural light. We want you to be comfortable, my mother said, helping me settle onto the bed. Your father even installed grab bars in the bathroom. The thoughtfulness of their preparations brought tears to my eyes. The first I'd allowed myself since this nightmare began. Thank you, I whispered, suddenly overwhelmed by everything. The surgery, David's betrayal, the uncertain future stretching before me. My mother sat beside me, taking my hand in hers. You're going to get through this, Emma. All of it. You're stronger than you know. I managed a weak smile. Right now, I don't feel very strong. "That's why we're here," my father said from the doorway. "To be strong for you until you find your footing again." I slept deeply that afternoon, my body demanding rest after the stress and activity of discharge. When I woke, the room was dimly lit, evening shadows stretching across the floor. My brother Marcus sat in the armchair near the bed, scrolling through his phone. "Hey, Sleeping Beauty," he said when he noticed me stirring. "About time you rejoined the living." Despite everything, I smiled at his familiar teasing tone. "When did you get here?" "About an hour ago." He set his phone aside. "Drove up as soon as I finished a project deadline." His expression turned serious. "Mom filled me in. I always knew David was a smooth-talking fraud, but this—" He shook his head. "I should have pushed harder when I saw the red flags." "It wouldn't have mattered," I said quietly. "I was completely taken in. I wouldn't have listened to anyone's concerns." Marcus nodded, accepting this truth. "So, what's the plan for tomorrow?" "Mom mentioned something about court?" "David's arraignment. I need to be there." He frowned. "You sure that's a good idea? You're 4 days post-op from major surgery." "I'm sure," I said firmly. Marcus studied me for a moment, then nodded. "All right then. I'll be there too. If we're doing this, we're doing it as a family." Morning brought a flurry of careful activity. My father helped me shower and dress, a humbling experience that emphasized just how dependent I had become. Sophia arrived early, bringing a cushion specially designed to support my spine during car rides. "The arraignment is scheduled for 10 a.m., she explained as we made our way to my father's SUV. "It should be fairly quick. The judge will read the charges, ask for a plea, and make a bail determination. Given the evidence and flight risk, I expect they'll deny bail or set it prohibitively high." The King County Courthouse loomed before us, its imposing stone facade a physical embodiment of the justice system I was now navigating. My father pulled into the disabled parking section, and Marcus retrieved a wheelchair from the trunk, another thoughtful preparation. Inside, the courthouse bustled with activity, attorneys hurrying between courtrooms, clerks managing stacks of files, families waiting anxiously on hard wooden benches. We made our way to courtroom 3C, where Sophia had confirmed David's arraignment would take place. "Detective Reyes said he'd save seats in the front," Sophia murmured, scanning the rapidly filling gallery. She spotted him near the front, his tall frame rising as he waved us over. "Mrs. Chen," he greeted me with a respectful nod. "I'm sorry we're meeting under these circumstances. Your father speaks highly of you." "Thank you for acting so quickly," I replied as Marcus wheeled me into the designated space beside the detective. "Just doing my job," Reyes said modestly. "The evidence was compelling. Your husband made some serious miscalculations." "Ex-husband," I corrected automatically. "Or he will be soon." Detective Reyes nodded, understanding. "The DA's handling this personally. She doesn't take kindly to this kind of predatory behavior." The courtroom gradually filled, the ambient noise rising until the bailiff called for order. "All rise. The Honorable Judge Eleanor Winters presiding." Everyone stood except me, still confined to the wheelchair. Judge Winters, a stern-faced woman in her 60s, took her seat at the bench, scanning the courtroom efficiently. First case, State versus David Chen. Charges of grand theft, identity theft, fraud, and conspiracy to commit wire fraud. The side door opened, and there he was. David, dressed in an orange jumpsuit that hung loosely on his frame, hands cuffed. In front of him, his eyes darted around the courtroom until they landed on me. The shock on his face when he saw me was momentarily satisfying. Clearly, he hadn't expected me to be physically present, to witness his humiliation firsthand. The bailiff led him to the defense table, where a court-appointed attorney waited. The charges were read, each one landing like a hammer blow in the quiet courtroom. When asked how he pled, David's voice was barely audible. "Not guilty, Your Honor." I felt my muscles tense, pain flaring along my spine despite the medication. Not guilty. As if there were any other explanation for his actions, any justification for what he had done. The prosecutor, a polished woman in her 40s, approached the bench. "Your Honor, the state requests remand without bail." The defendant was apprehended while attempting to flee the country with fraudulently obtained funds exceeding $300,000. He represents an extreme flight risk. David's attorney countered with arguments about community ties and lack of prior criminal record, but Judge Winters remained unmoved. Bail is denied. The defendant will remain in custody pending trial. She brought down her gavel with finality. Next case. As David was led away, he turned to look at me one last time. I met his gaze unflinchingly, refusing to show any emotion, any weakness. This moment, this silent confrontation across the courtroom, was what I had needed. To see him stripped of his charm, his manipulations, his careful facade. To let him see that despite his best efforts to break me, I was still standing. Metaphorically, at least. Outside the courthouse, surrounded by my family, I felt a strange lightness despite the physical pain that continued to plague me. "What happens now?" I asked Sophia as Marcus helped me back into the wheelchair. "Now we focus on two parallel tracks, criminal and civil," she explained. "The criminal case will proceed through the system, likely taking months to reach trial, though with the evidence we have, I wouldn't be surprised if the DA offers a plea deal. And civilly, we continue with the divorce proceedings and financial recovery. The criminal charges actually strengthen our civil case significantly." She checked her watch. "Speaking of which, I need to file some additional motions this afternoon. Can we meet tomorrow to go through the asset recovery plan?" I nodded, suddenly exhausted by the morning's events. "Tomorrow's fine. I think I need to rest now." The next few days passed in a blur of medication, physical therapy, exercises, legal discussions, and increasingly uncomfortable conversations with the financial institutions that had allowed David to empty our accounts despite suspicious activity alerts. My parents' guest room became command central, with Sophia spreading documents across the bed as we strategized each move. "The good news," she explained one afternoon, "is that we've frozen every account mentioned in David's notebook. He can't access any of the transferred funds. The bad news is that recovering them will take time. Some were moved offshore to jurisdictions that don't cooperate easily with U.S. financial authorities." I nodded, processing this information. "What about our house, the townhouse?" "That's actually more straightforward. Since it was purchased during your marriage with joint funds, it's clearly marital property. David's attempt to change the locks and falsified documents about ownership actually works in our favor. It shows clear intent to deprive you of your share." My mother, who had been listening from the doorway, spoke up. "What about selling it? After everything that's happened there, would Emma really want to keep it?" The question caught me off guard. I hadn't thought that far ahead, hadn't considered. What would happen after the immediate legal battles were resolved? Would I want to return to the townhouse where David and I had built our life together? Sleep in the bedroom we had shared? Cook in the kitchen where we had hosted dinner parties, planned our future? "I don't know," I admitted. "It's too soon to decide." Sophia nodded understandingly. "That's fine. We don't need to make those decisions now. The important thing is securing your legal rights to the property and other assets." As she gathered her documents to leave, my phone buzzed. With an unfamiliar number. Normally I would have ignored it, but something prompted me to answer. "Hello? Mrs. Chen, this is Amanda Packer from Human Resources at Apex Marketing." The woman's voice was professionally neutral. "I'm calling regarding your husband's health insurance policy." My stomach tightened. "Yes? I understand you're currently recovering from a medical procedure that was covered under our plan. I wanted to inform you personally that despite Mr. Chen's current situation, We've decided to maintain your coverage through the end of the month to ensure continuity of care. I exhaled slowly, relief washing over me. Thank you. That's very considerate. There was a slight hesitation on the line. Mrs. Chen, I hope you don't mind my saying this, but most of us here were shocked when we learned what happened. David always spoke so highly of you, showed your pictures at company events. None of us had any idea he was. She trailed off, apparently unsure how to diplomatically reference my husband's spectacular betrayal. Leading a double life? I supplied. Yes, she agreed, sounding relieved at my directness. Anyway, I just wanted you to know that you have until the end of the month before the coverage terminates. That should give you time to arrange alternative insurance. After hanging up, I relayed the conversation to Sophia and my mother. That's decent of them, Sophia noted. Not legally required, but humane. We should get you enrolled in Evergreen's plan immediately, though. I'll contact Alex to expedite it. My mother's phone chimed with an incoming text. She glanced at it, her expression darkening. It's from your building's property manager. Apparently, someone tried to access your townhouse last night. A woman claiming to be house-sitting for you and David. I frowned. Did they give a name? Vanessa Morris. Sophia and I exchanged glances. That doesn't make sense, I said. She's the one who gave us David's notebook. Why would she try to access our house now? Maybe she forgot something inside? My mother suggested. Or realized there was other evidence she needed to remove? Sophia shook her head. Or she's playing both sides, helping us while still maintaining a connection to David. She stood, gathering her things with newfound urgency. I'll have Detective Reyes look into it. In the meantime, we should have the property manager change the security codes again and notify us of any further attempts at entry. After Sophia left, I found myself struggling to process this new development. Had Vanessa been sincere in her desire to help? Or was her cooperation just another layer in David's complex scheme? Perhaps she had realized that David wasn't going to escape the charges and was now trying to recover whatever she could from our home? My mother noticed my distress. Try not to dwell on it, Emma. Sophia and the detective will handle it. But I couldn't let it go. Can you hand me my laptop? I want to check something. My mother hesitated. You're supposed to be resting. This will only take a minute, I promised. Reluctantly, she brought me my laptop from the nearby desk. I opened my email and began searching through years of correspondence. David and I had shared a digital calendar for household matters. Dinner parties, maintenance appointments, travel plans. I found what I was looking for in our shared calendar, recurring entries labeled VM Home Consult, appearing every other Tuesday for the past 4 months. The entries had seemed innocuous at the time. David had explained them as meetings with a vendor management consultant for his company. Now the initials took on a different, more sinister meaning. VM, Vanessa Morris. He was bringing her to our home, I said quietly, turning the laptop so my mother could see the screen. While I was at work. For months. My mother's expression hardened as she studied the calendar. That manipulative bastard. The betrayal cut deeper than I had expected. It wasn't just that David had been unfaithful. I had already processed that particular wound. It was the calculated invasion of our shared space, the deliberate contamination of what should have been our sanctuary. While I worked long hours to build our financial future, he had been entertaining his mistress in our bed. I need to go. There, I said suddenly. To the townhouse. My mother shook her head immediately. Absolutely not. You're barely a week post-surgery. Dr. Patel was very clear about limiting your movement. I can't explain it, I insisted. But I need to see it, to confront it. Otherwise, my imagination will keep torturing me with possibilities. Emma, please be reasonable. I am being reasonable, I countered. My entire life has been upended. I'm trying to make decisions about my future while stuck in this bed, unable to process what's happened because I can't see the reality of it. I need concrete evidence, not just stories and secondhand reports. My mother studied my face, recognizing the determination there. Let me call your father, and Sophia. We'll do this properly, with support. 2 hours later, we assembled a small convoy. My father driving me in his SUV equipped with the special spine cushion, my mother following in her car, and Marcus meeting us at the townhouse after picking up Sophia from her office. Detective Reyes had arranged for a patrol car to be present as well, given the uncertain situation with Vanessa's attempted entry. As we pulled into the familiar driveway of the Queen Anne townhouse, I felt a strange disconnection. This elegant building with its contemporary architecture and carefully tended window boxes had been my home for 5 years. Now it felt like visiting a crime scene, a place where something precious had been violated. "You don't have to do this today," my father said gently, parking in front of the garage. "We can come back when you're stronger." I shook my head. "I need to see it now." The property manager had provided a new entry code, which my father punched in while supporting me with his other arm. The door swung open, revealing the entryway exactly as I remembered it. The slate gray tiles, the minimalist console table, the abstract painting David and I had purchased on our trip to Santa Fe 3 years ago. Everything looked normal, unchanged, as if the life we had built here hadn't been shattered beyond repair. I moved slowly through the living room, leaning on my father's arm, taking in details with new awareness. The expensive leather sofa David had insisted we needed. The smart home system he had spent weeks installing. The wine refrigerator stocked with bottles we had been saving for special occasions. Each item now seemed like a prop in an elaborate stage play, one where I had been both audience and unwitting performer. "I'd like to go upstairs," I said. My father exchanged concerned glances with my mother, who had just entered behind us. "Emma, the stairs might be too much right now." "I can manage it, slowly." Sophia, arriving with Marcus, took in the situation quickly. "How about a compromise? Let Marcus and I check upstairs first, see if there's anything concerning, then help you up if you still feel it's necessary." I nodded reluctantly, acknowledging the wisdom in her approach. While they went upstairs, Detective Reyes arrived, nodding professionally to my parents. "Mrs. Chen, we've been looking into Vanessa Morris's movements since she provided the notebook," he said without preamble. "She's made 3 visits to the detention center to see your husband." I felt a cold weight settle in my stomach. "When?" "The day after she gave you the notebook, then again 2 days ago, and this morning. Each visit lasted approximately 30 minutes. My parents and I exchanged confused glances. "So she's playing both sides," my mother concluded. "Detective?" Reyes shrugged. "Hard to say for certain. It's not unusual for these situations to be, complicated." Before we could discuss further, Sophia called down from upstairs. "Emma, I think you should come up after all. There's something you need to see." With my father's support on one side and the banister on the other, I slowly ascended the stairs, each step sending small shockwaves of pain through my healing spine. The effort left me breathless, but determination pushed me forward. Sophia waited at the top, her expression grave, in the office. I made my way down the hallway, past the master bedroom I wasn't yet ready to confront, to the small room we had used as a home office. The door stood open, revealing Marcus standing by the desk, examining something. The room appeared ransacked, desk drawers pulled out, file cabinet doors hanging open, papers scattered across the floor. But it wasn't random destruction. It was methodical searching. "Someone was looking for something specific," Sophia said, gesturing to the targeted nature of the disturbance. Only financial files had been disturbed. Books, electronics, and decorative items remained untouched. Marcus held up a small key I recognized immediately. "Found this taped under the desk drawer. It looks like it might fit a safe deposit box. I stared at the key, memories surfacing. It does. We have had a safe deposit box at First Pacific Credit Union for important documents, some jewelry, my grandmother's silver. Detective Reyes, who had followed us upstairs, took out his notebook. When was the last time you accessed it? I thought carefully. Maybe 6 months ago? We put our passports in there after our trip to Vancouver. I'll contact the bank immediately, Reyes said. If this key was hidden, it suggests your husband doesn't have his own copy. He may have been searching for it. Or Vanessa was, my mother added. I sank into the desk chair, suddenly overwhelmed by the physical and emotional toll of this expedition. We should check the master bedroom, too. Marcus nodded. I already did. Well, there are definitely signs someone else has been staying there. Women's toiletries in the bathroom that I'm guessing aren't yours. Some clothes in the closet. The confirmation of what I had already suspected, that Vanessa had been living in my home while I was in the hospital, should have hurt more. Instead, I felt oddly detached, as if we were discussing evidence in someone else's tragedy. There's something else, Sophia said hesitantly, in the nightstand drawer. Show me, I insisted. Marcus reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet jewelry box. This was hidden under some papers. I think you should see what's inside. With unsteady hands, I opened the box, revealing a stunning diamond engagement ring, far more elaborate and expensive than the simple band David had given me years ago. That's not mine, I said unnecessarily. There's an inscription, Marcus pointed out. I tilted the ring to read the tiny engraving inside the band. 2V, my future begins with you. The room fell silent as the implication sank in. David hadn't just been having an affair with Vanessa. He had been planning to propose to her, with my money, while still married to me. Well, I said finally, closing the box with a decisive snap. That certainly clarifies things. Detective Reyes cleared his throat. Mrs. Chen, with your permission, I'd like to take photographs of all this as additional evidence. The ring, the disturbed office, the women's items in the bathroom, it all strengthens the case against your husband. I nodded, suddenly exhausted beyond measure. Take whatever you need. I want to go now. My father helped me downstairs and back to the car, while Detective Reyes documented the scene, and my mother gathered a few personal items I had requested: photo albums, my personal laptop, some comfortable clothes. As we drove away from the townhouse, I gazed back at what had once been my home, feeling a strange sense of finality. I wouldn't be coming back here to live. That chapter of my life was definitively closed. Are you all right? My father asked, glancing at me with concern. No, I answered honestly. But I will be. Back at my parents' house, I retreated to the guest room, needing solitude to process what we had discovered. The physical exertion had left me in considerable pain, but it was the emotional revelations that truly exhausted me. I must have dozed off because I awoke to a gentle knock at the door. Marcus entered, carrying a mug of tea. Thought you might need this, he said, setting it on the nightstand. Mom's making dinner, but she said not to wake you if you were sleeping. I struggled to sit up, wincing at the movement. Thank you. What time is it? Almost 7. You've been out for a couple of hours. He sat on the edge of the bed. Sophia called. The bank confirmed that no one has accessed the safe deposit box recently. They've placed a hold on it requiring your in-person verification before anyone can open. I nodded, relieved. Good. Marcus hesitated, then continued. Detective Reyes also called. They brought Vanessa in for questioning based on the evidence at the townhouse. She's claiming she was only there to retrieve her personal belongings, not to search for anything. Do you believe that? I asked. He shrugged. Doesn't matter. What I believe. The evidence says otherwise. The detective thinks she and David are still communicating somehow, coordinating their stories. I sipped the tea, letting its warmth soothe me. The ring changes things, doesn't it? Legally, I mean. Sophia seemed to think so. She said it establishes a clear pattern of premeditation, that David was planning to start a new life with Vanessa using your joint assets. It supports the fraud charges. A silence fell between us, comfortable and familiar. Marcus and I had always been close despite our different temperaments. I was the planner, the analytical one. He was the creative risk-taker. But we shared a fundamental understanding of each other that went beyond personality traits. I should have listened to you about him, I admitted finally. You saw through David from the beginning. Marcus shook his head. Don't do that to yourself, Emma. David fooled a lot of people. Colleagues, friends, clients. He was exceptionally good at it. Besides, you weren't ready to hear my concerns then. Still, I insisted, your instincts were right. Mine were completely wrong. Your instincts are fine, he countered. You just chose to see the best in someone you loved. That's not a character flaw, Emma. His words offered a small comfort. Not absolution. I wasn't ready for that yet. But perhaps the beginning of forgiveness. For myself, if not for David. My phone buzzed with an incoming email. I picked it up, scanning the notification. It's from Alex, my boss. The emergency. Enrollment in Evergreen's health insurance plan has been approved. Coverage starts immediately. That's good news, Marcus said. One less thing to worry about. I set the phone down, suddenly overcome with the bizarre reality of my situation. God, Marcus, how did I end up here? A week ago, I was going into surgery expecting to wake up to a more comfortable life without chronic pain. Instead, I woke up to this. Life's messy that way, he said simply. Throws curveballs when you least expect them. I laughed despite myself. A curveball is an understatement. This is more like the stadium collapsed while I was watching the game. He smiled, pleased to see a flash of my old humor. Want me to bring you some dinner? Mom's making her famous lasagna. I'll come to the table, I decided. I need to start moving more anyway, according to the physical therapist. With Marcus's help, I made my way to the dining room, where my parents were setting the table. The domesticity of the scene, my father arranging silverware, my mother placing a steaming dish in the center of the table, provided a strange contrast to the chaos of my circumstances. Perfect timing, my mother said, helping me into a chair cushioned with pillows. Everything's ready. As we ate, the conversation deliberately avoided the events of the day, focusing instead on mundane matters. My father's garden plans, Marcus's latest coding project, a movie my mother had recently enjoyed. It was a conscious effort to create normalcy within abnormal circumstances, and I appreciated it more than I could express. After dinner, as Marcus helped me back to the guest room, my phone rang with Sophia's number. Emma, sorry to call so late, she said when I answered. But there's been a development I thought you should know about right away. David's attorney has reached out with a settlement offer. I blinked in surprise. Already? The arraignment was just yesterday. Exactly, Sophia replied, her tone indicating she found it equally suspicious. They're moving quickly, which suggests they're worried about the mounting evidence. What's the offer? I asked, putting the phone on speaker so Marcus could hear as well. On the surface, it looks generous. David returns everything he took from your accounts, pays for all your medical expenses, transfers full ownership of the townhouse to you, and in exchange, you drop the criminal charges. I frowned. Can I even do that? Drop criminal charges? Not technically, Sophia explained. Criminal charges are brought by the state, not by individuals. However, if you were to stop cooperating with the prosecution, indicate you believe it was all a misunderstanding, the case would be significantly weakened. That's ridiculous, Marcus interjected. After everything he did? I nodded in agreement. It doesn't make sense. Why would he offer to return everything if he's claiming innocence? It's an admission of guilt. Exactly, Sophia said. Which is why we need to look deeper. I suspect the offer isn't as generous as it appears. For one thing, it doesn't specify which accounts he would return money from. Based on his notebook, we know he transferred funds to several offshore locations. He might be offering to return only the money that's easily traceable, keeping the rest hidden. And the townhouse is probably underwater after he maxed out the home equity line of credit, I added, thinking aloud. So he's generously giving me a property with more debt than value. My thoughts exactly, Sophia agreed. Plus, there's the matter of Vanessa. The evidence from today suggests they're still very much in communication, possibly planning something together. I considered the implications. So this offer might be a distraction, a way to get us to back off while they make other arrangements. Potentially. It's also possible that David is genuinely scared of prison time and is trying to buy his way out of consequences. Either way, I don't recommend accepting this offer. I wasn't planning to, I assured her. But is there a way we can use this to our advantage? If he's desperate enough to offer a settlement, maybe he's vulnerable in ways we haven't considered. There was a thoughtful pause on the line. Let me think about that. A counteroffer might be strategically useful, even if we know he can't meet our demands. It could reveal more about his current position and resources. After ending the call with Sophia, I turned to Marcus, who had been listening intently. What do you think? I think David's scared, he replied. And scared people make mistakes. This settlement offer reeks of desperation. I nodded, processing his assessment. The question is, what's he most afraid of? Prison? Financial ruin? Public humiliation? All of the above, probably, Marcus suggested. But if I had to guess, I'd say his biggest fear is losing control. Everything he's done, the careful planning, the secret accounts, the double life, it's all about maintaining control over his environment and the people in it. His observation resonated with me. David had always needed to be in charge, to direct outcomes, to shape narratives. Even in our marriage, he had subtly guided major decisions while making me feel they were collaborative. The current situation, imprisoned, exposed, dependent on court-appointed attorneys, represented his worst nightmare. You might be right, I said slowly. And if control is what matters to him most, then loss of control is the leverage we need, Marcus finished. The morning of David's preliminary hearing dawned clear and crisp. Seattle's typical cloud cover temporarily lifted to reveal a brilliant blue sky. 2 weeks had passed since my surgery, and while I still moved cautiously, the acute pain had subsided to a manageable ache. My follow-up appointment with Dr. Patel had confirmed that the surgical site was healing well, though she continued to stress the importance of proper rest and gradual activity. Are you certain you want to attend? My mother asked as she helped me dress in a tailored charcoal gray suit, professional, understated, perfect for the courtroom. Sophia could represent your interests without you having to subject yourself to this. I met my mother's concerned gaze in the mirror as she buttoned the back of my blouse. I need to be there, not just for the legal proceedings, but for myself. I need to look him in the eye again, now that I know the full scope of what he planned. The past 2 weeks had revealed layer upon layer of David's deception. Detective Reyes and the Financial Crimes Unit had traced the movement of funds through a complex web of accounts, some in David's name, others under shell companies, and several requiring Vanessa's signature for withdrawals. The discovery of Vanessa's involvement at that level had prompted additional charges against her as a co-conspirator rather than a mere accessory. They had been planning this for at least a year, Sophia had explained during one of our strategy sessions. Tax records show David created the first shell company 14 months ago. Vanessa was listed as the primary officer, though her signature on the documents appears to be forged. Later companies do have her legitimate signature, suggesting her involvement deepened over time. The engagement ring we'd discovered, purchased with my money, intended for the woman who had helped steal it, had become a powerful piece of evidence. It established a clear timeline and intent, contradicting David's initial claims that he had merely been reorganizing their finances without criminal purpose. "Ready?" my father asked, appearing in the doorway of the guest room I still occupied in my parents' home. I nodded, accepting the walking cane that had become my constant companion. Dr. Patel had insisted on it, not because I couldn't walk without support, but to prevent me from pushing too hard, too fast during my recovery. Detective Reyes called. My father continued as we made our way to the car. Vanessa's attorney has approached the DA about a potential plea deal. They think she's prepared to testify against David in exchange for reduced charges. "Rats fleeing the sinking ship," my mother muttered, adjusting pillows in the back seat to support my spine during the drive. I settled into the car, considering this new development. Is it a credible offer, or is she still playing both sides? My father shrugged. Reyes seemed to think it was genuine. Apparently, she had quite a reaction when they showed her evidence that David had been seeing a third woman on the side, someone from his gym. Realized she wasn't as special as she thought. I couldn't help the short, disbelieving laugh that escaped me. Of course there was someone else. Why am I not surprised? The courthouse seemed less intimidating this time, its grand facade familiar rather than imposing. Marcus was waiting for us at the entrance, having driven in from Portland the night before. He helped me from the car, steadying my arm as I navigated the steps with my cane. "Sophia's already inside securing seats," he explained. "The courtroom's packed. Apparently, financial crimes involving a seemingly perfect couple generates quite the public interest." Indeed, the hallway outside courtroom 3C bustled with activity. Reporters with press badges, curious onlookers, even a few faces I recognized from our social circle. Whispers followed us as we made our way through the crowd, eyes lingering on my cane, my careful movements, the protective formation my family created around me. Inside, Sophia waved us to the reserved seats in the front row. The prosecutor, a sharp-eyed woman named Evelyn Martinez, approached as we settled in. "Mrs. Chen, thank you for coming today," she said, shaking my hand. "I wanted to update you personally. Ms. Morris's attorney has officially presented a cooperation offer. She's prepared to provide detailed testimony regarding Mr. Chen's actions, including evidence we weren't previously aware of." "What kind of evidence?" I asked. "Recordings," Martinez replied, lowering her voice. Apparently, Ms. Morris began recording their conversations several months ago as her own form of insurance. Some of these recordings explicitly discuss the plan to drain your accounts during your surgery and flee the country. The revelation sent a cold wave through me. Vanessa had been recording David, collecting evidence against him, while simultaneously participating in his scheme. It painted a picture of mutual distrust wrapped in a veneer of romance, each plotting against the other, even as they plotted together against me. "And you trust her to testify truthfully now?" Sophia asked, voicing my own skepticism. Martinez smiled thinly. "Trust isn't required. The recordings speak for themselves, and they're admissible since Washington is a one-party consent state for recordings. Ms. Morris's credibility is certainly questionable, but the evidence she's provided is solid." Before we could discuss further, the bailiff called the court to order. Judge Winters entered, her demeanor as no-nonsense as I remembered from the arraignment. David was led in moments later, looking markedly different from our last encounter. The prison jumpsuit had been replaced with a suit that hung loosely on his frame, suggesting weight loss. His normally perfectly styled hair appeared flat, his confident posture diminished. His eyes found me immediately, widening slightly at my presence. Unlike at the arraignment, where shock had dominated his expression, today I saw something different in his gaze. Calculation. He was assessing, measuring, planning even now. The realization strengthened my resolve. Despite everything, David remained fundamentally unchanged, still manipulating, still strategizing, still believing in his ability to control outcomes. The preliminary hearing proceeded with formal efficiency. The prosecution presented their evidence, including new details from the financial investigation, the documents from our townhouse, and, most damning, portions of Vanessa's recordings. David's voice filled the courtroom, clinical and detached as he discussed liquidating our assets while I would be conveniently sedated and unable to interfere. With each piece of evidence, David's attorney appeared increasingly uncomfortable, whispering urgently to his client during breaks in testimony. When the prosecution rested their presentation, Judge Winters looked over her reading glasses at the defense table. "Counsel, does the defense wish to present any evidence at this time?" David's attorney stood. "Your Honor, in light of the evidence presented, we request a brief recess to confer with our client." Judge Winters nodded. "The court will recess for 30 minutes. As the courtroom began to empty, Sophia leaned close to me. "They're going to push for a plea deal now. The new evidence from Vanessa has significantly strengthened the prosecution's case." I nodded, watching as David was led away by court officers. "What do you think they'll offer?" "Given the charges and evidence, probably a significant prison term, but less than the maximum. The financial restitution will be comprehensive. They'll have no choice on that front." My father, who had been quietly observing the proceedings, spoke up. "Is that enough? After what he did?" The question hung in the air between us. Was any punishment truly enough for the calculated betrayal David had orchestrated? For the violation of trust, the emotional trauma, the weeks of recovery, complicated by financial anxiety and legal battles? "It's not about what's enough," I said finally. "It's about what allows me to move forward." When court reconvened, the shift in atmosphere was immediately apparent. David's attorney approached the prosecution table, the two lawyers engaging in intense, whispered conversation. Judge Winters observed with practiced patience before addressing the court. "I understand the parties wish to address the court regarding a potential resolution?" The prosecutor stood. "Yes, Your Honor. The parties have engaged in preliminary discussions regarding a possible plea agreement. We request a formal settlement conference before proceeding further." Judge Winters nodded. "Very well. We'll schedule a settlement conference for next week. In the meantime, the defendant will remain in custody." She brought down her gavel, concluding the day's proceedings. As we prepared to leave, I noticed David watching me intently. His attorney bent to whisper something in his ear, but David shook his head sharply, his eyes never leaving mine. Then, to my surprise, he gestured to the court officer, saying something that caused the officer to approach our group. "Mrs. Chen," the officer said, "the defendant has requested to speak with you briefly before being returned to custody. You're under no obligation to agree." My family tensed around me, Marcus immediately objecting. "Absolutely not." But curiosity, or perhaps something deeper, some need for final confrontation, flickered within me. What would be the conditions of such a meeting? It would take place in the attorney conference room, with court officers present at all times. Your attorney may accompany you. There would be no recording, and either party could terminate the conversation at any point. I turned to Sophia, who looked concerned but thoughtful. "Legally, there's no risk in hearing what he has to say. Anything he admits could potentially strengthen our position. But emotionally..." She left the sentence unfinished, the implication clear. After a moment's consideration, I nodded. "I'll speak with him." Despite my family's concerned protests, I followed the court officer to a small conference room, Sophia at my side. David was already seated at the table, hands still cuffed, a different officer standing by the door. His expression shifted subtly when I entered, relief perhaps that I had agreed to the meeting. "Thank you for coming," he said, as I carefully lowered myself into the chair across from him. "I wasn't sure you would." "What do you want, David?" I asked, keeping my voice level. "We have nothing to discuss that can't be handled through our attorneys." He seemed to study me, taking in the cane leaning against my chair, the careful way I held myself to minimize pain. "How's your recovery going?" The casual question, as if he were an estranged friend checking in, not the man who had orchestrated. My financial ruin while I recovered from surgery nearly made me laugh. "Is that really what you wanted to ask me?" He had the grace to look momentarily abashed. "No, I suppose not." He leaned forward slightly. I wanted to explain. "Save it," I interrupted. "There's no explanation that could possibly justify what you did." "Not justify," he amended quickly. "Explain. There's a difference." I glanced at Sophia, who gave a slight nod, indicating I should let him continue. If nothing else, his words might provide insight useful to our case. "Fine," I said. "Explain." David exhaled slowly. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. The plan was simpler originally. Quietly move some assets, file for divorce while citing irreconcilable differences, make a clean break. His gaze dropped to the table. "But then your surgery was scheduled, and the timing seemed convenient. You'd be focused on recovery, less likely to immediately notice financial changes. So you decided to steal everything instead of just your share?" I prompted when he paused. He winced at the word steal, but didn't contest it. "I convinced myself you owed me more than half, that your career had advanced while I had stagnated, that the lifestyle we built was more your vision than mine." He looked up, meeting my eyes directly. "I was lying to myself, of course. The truth is simpler and uglier. I was greedy, and angry, and scared of starting over with nothing." "And Vanessa?" I couldn't help asking. "Was she part of the original plan?" A bitter smile crossed his face. "Vanessa was a complication. She started as a distraction, became an accomplice, and ultimately a liability. I didn't anticipate her making her own plans, recording our conversations." He shook his head. "I underestimated her, just like I underestimated you." The admission hung between us. In David's world, people were pieces to be moved on a chessboard, useful or obstacles, but never equals. He had miscalculated with both Vanessa and me, assuming compliance and predictability where he should have recognized agency and resilience. "Why did you want to see me today?" I asked, bringing us back to the present moment. "Surely not just to admit you underestimated me." David straightened slightly. "My attorney tells me a plea deal is my best option given the evidence. Before I agree to anything, I wanted to speak with you directly, to ask what you want out of this." The question caught me off guard. "What I want? I want my money back. I want justice for what you did. I stopped, realizing with sudden clarity what I wanted most. "I want to move forward with my life without you in it." He nodded slowly. "That's fair. More than fair, considering." He hesitated. "The prosecutor's initial offer includes full financial restitution, but it would be paid over time during my probation period after serving a prison sentence. That could mean years before you receive everything." I understood the implication. He was suggesting an alternative arrangement, perhaps immediate repayment in exchange for my support of a more lenient sentence. "Where would the immediate repayment come from?" Sophia interjected, clearly thinking along the same lines. "Our financial investigation hasn't located all the missing funds." David's expression shifted, becoming more guarded. "There are resources the investigation hasn't uncovered, accounts that could be liquidated quickly under the right circumstances." "Hidden accounts," I clarified. Money you're still concealing even now. He didn't deny it. Consider it a pragmatic solution. You get immediate financial restoration without waiting years for restitution payments. I get a slightly more favorable sentencing recommendation. The proposal was tempting on its face. Immediate repayment would alleviate the financial uncertainty that continued to shadow my recovery. But the underlying calculation felt familiar. David attempting to negotiate his way out of the full consequences of his actions, still believing he could control the narrative. No deal, I said firmly. I won't support leniency in exchange for what's rightfully mine anyway. If there are hidden accounts, you should disclose them to the prosecutor as part of good faith cooperation. Disappointment flickered across his face, quickly masked. I expected you might say that. Worth asking, though. He shifted in his seat, the handcuffs clinking softly. There's one more thing, then. A gesture of, not reconciliation, but acknowledgement. What kind of gesture? I asked warily. The safe deposit box key your brother found. It doesn't just open our box at First Pacific. There's another box, at Seattle Trust Bank, opened in both our names but that you weren't aware of. He met my gaze directly. The paperwork is there, for all of it. The shell companies, the offshore accounts, the transfers, everything you would need to trace and recover the full amount, regardless of what happens with the criminal case. Sophia leaned forward, instantly alert. Why would you keep incriminating documentation? A resigned smile crossed David's face. Insurance. Against partners who might get cold feet, banks that might ask too many questions, unexpected audits. I didn't anticipate using it this way, but... He shrugged. Consider it my parting gift. I studied him, trying to discern his true motivation. Was this genuine remorse? A strategic move to appear cooperative? Or something else entirely? Why tell me this now? I asked. Why not use this information to negotiate with the prosecutor directly? David held my gaze. Because despite everything, I did love you, Emma. Not well, not faithfully, not honestly, but in my own way. And this is the closest thing to amends I can offer. The words should have moved me, should have stirred some remnant of the love I had once felt for this man. Instead, they slid off like water on glass, leaving no impression. The David I had loved had never truly existed. This man, calculating even in his apparent contrition, was closer to the truth, but no longer held any power over my emotions. I'll have Detective Reyes look into the box at Seattle Trust, I said, rising carefully from my chair. If the information proves useful, I'm sure the prosecutor will take it into consideration. Beyond that, I have nothing more to say to you. As I turned to leave, David called after me. Emma, wait! One last thing. The password for the files. It's the date we first met. You remember? By the coffee cart at Pike Place? The memory he referenced. Our chance encounter on a rainy Seattle morning. Both of us seeking shelter under the same awning. The conversation that had led to coffee, then dinner, then 7 years. Of marriage. Felt like it belonged to another person's life. I didn't acknowledge his words, simply continued toward the door, Sophia at my side. In the hallway, my family waited anxiously, relief washing over their faces when I emerged from the conference room. My mother immediately stepped forward, taking my arm as if to verify I was truly unharmed. What did he want? Marcus demanded, his protective instincts clearly on high alert. I shared David's revelation about the second safe deposit box as we made our way out of the courthouse, Sophia already on the phone with Detective Reyes to arrange immediate access. My father listened intently, his expression thoughtful. Do you believe him? He asked when I finished. About the documentation? Oddly enough, I do, I replied. It fits his pattern. Always having a contingency plan, always maintaining leverage. He wouldn't have mentioned it if the box didn't contain something valuable. The next morning brought confirmation. Detective Reyes, accompanied by Sophia and a bank representative, accessed the safe deposit box at Seattle Trust Bank, using the key found in our townhouse. Inside, they discovered exactly what David had described: meticulous records of all financial transactions, account numbers for holdings not yet uncovered by the investigation, and detailed instructions for accessing the offshore accounts where the majority of our money had been hidden. "It's remarkable," Sophia told me as she spread the documents across my parents' dining table later that day. "He documented everything: transfers, withdrawals, account openings. He even kept copies of the forged documents he used to authorize transactions in your name." "Classic narcissism," Marcus commented, examining one of the spreadsheets. He was so proud of his elaborate scheme that he couldn't bear for it to go unappreciated. He needed a record, even if only for himself. Detective Reyes nodded in agreement. "We see this pattern with certain types of white-collar criminals. The complexity of the fraud becomes a point of pride. They document it not just for practical purposes, but as a testament to their own cleverness." "Well, his cleverness has just guaranteed the prosecution's case," Sophia noted with satisfaction. "And more importantly for you, Emma, it provides a clear path to recovering nearly everything he took." The realization that I might actually reclaim what David had stolen, not just partially or eventually, but fully and soon, felt surreal. For weeks, I had been adjusting to a new reality of financial uncertainty, piecing together contingency plans for a future with significantly diminished resources. The prospect of returning to financial stability seemed almost too good to be true. "How soon?" I asked, the practical question foremost in my mind. Sophia exchanged glances with Detective Reyes. "For the domestic accounts, potentially within days. The offshore holdings will take longer, weeks, maybe months. But the documentation provides clear legal standing for recovery." "And in the meantime," my mother interjected, "you stay with us as long as necessary. There's no rush." Her words, though meant as reassurance, sparked something within me, a sudden clarity about what I needed next. "Actually, there is a rush. Not to leave your home," I added quickly, seeing her expression fall, "but to establish my own path forward. I've been in a holding pattern, waiting for resolution with David. It's time I started making my own decisions. Again." The resolve in my voice must have been apparent, as my family exchanged glances that mixed concern with respect. My father was the first to nod in understanding. "What do you need from us?" he asked simply. "For now, just your continued support," I replied. "And maybe Dad's help with a real estate agent. I'm going to sell the townhouse." The decision, once spoken aloud, felt unquestionably right. The Queen Anne townhouse, once my dream home, now represented a chapter of life I needed to close definitively. It wasn't just the painful associations with David's betrayal, it was the recognition that the life I had planned there was gone, replaced by something new that required its own foundation. 2 days later, with the help of a real estate agent recommended by my father's colleague, I listed the townhouse. The market in Seattle remained strong, and the property's desirable location generated immediate interest despite its somewhat rushed staging. By the end of the week, I had 3 offers, all above asking price. "They're essentially bidding on location and potential," the agent explained during a conference call. "Buyers in this market are prepared to undertake renovations to secure properties in established neighborhoods." I accepted the highest offer, a clean bid with minimal contingencies from a tech executive relocating from San Francisco. The sale would close in 30 days, a timeline that felt both alarmingly swift and not soon enough. With the townhouse matter in progress, I turned my attention to my professional future. My medical leave from Evergreen Financial had 3 weeks remaining, but I found myself increasingly eager to reconnect with that aspect of my identity. I arranged a lunch meeting with Alex, my boss and mentor, at a restaurant near the office. "Emma," he greeted me warmly, rising from the table as I approached. You look well. How's the recovery coming along? I set my cane against the edge of the table, still necessary for longer walks but increasingly ceremonial for short distances. Better every day. Dr. Patel is pleased with my progress. Alex nodded, his expression turning more serious as we settled into our seats. And the other situation, your husband's case? Moving forward, I replied, keeping my tone professional despite the personal nature of the discussion. The evidence is substantial. His attorney is negotiating a plea deal that will include full financial restitution. I'm glad to hear it. Alex studied me for a moment. You know, when you called about this lunch, I assumed you wanted to discuss extending your leave. You've been through a traumatic experience, both physically and emotionally. No one would question your need for additional recovery time. I appreciated his concern, but found myself shaking my head. Actually, I was hoping to discuss the opposite. I'd like to return to work next week, perhaps on a modified schedule initially. Surprise flickered across his face. Are you sure that's wise? The stress of jumping back into our workflow would be preferable to the stress of sitting idle with too much time to dwell on recent events, I finished. I need purpose, Alex. Meaningful work, structure, the things that have always centered me. He considered this, nodding slowly. I understand that impulse, but I have a counter-proposal. He leaned forward. What if, instead of returning to your previous position immediately, you took on a special project? Something challenging enough to engage you fully, but with more flexible parameters than your regular client portfolio. My curiosity piqued. What kind of special project? The London expansion we've been discussing for the past year. We're ready to move forward, but we need someone to develop the strategic framework, client acquisition targets, staffing models, regulatory navigation. It would require your analytical skills without the immediate pressure of client-facing deadlines. The proposal was intriguing, substantive work that would utilize my strengths while allowing the flexibility my recovery still required. Would it involve travel? Eventually, yes, but the initial phase could be done entirely from Seattle, with video conferences as needed. Once you're fully recovered, there would be a 2-week trip to London to finalize arrangements. I found myself warming to the idea. A new project, disconnected from my previous work and the life I had shared with David, felt symbolically appropriate. I'd like to see the preliminary materials. Alex smiled, recognizing my implicit acceptance. I'll have them sent to you this afternoon. Take the weekend to review them, and if you're still interested, we can discuss specifics on Monday. As we continued our lunch, conversation flowing to industry developments and office updates, I felt a familiar sense of competence returning. A reminder that while much had changed, my professional capabilities remained intact. This part of myself, at least, David had not managed to damage. The weekend brought another milestone. Detective Reyes called early Saturday morning with news that the domestic accounts David had hidden had been officially frozen and were in the process of being returned to my control. The first transfers should appear in your account by Monday, he explained. The offshore accounts will take longer, but we're working through the proper channels. The documentation your husband provided has expedited matters significantly. Thank you, I said, genuine gratitude in my voice, for everything you've done. Just doing my job, Mrs. Chen, though, if you don't mind my saying, it's been particularly satisfying to see someone like your husband face actual consequences. Too often, these types of financial crimes get resolved with minimal impact to the perpetrator. After hanging up, I shared the news with my parents over breakfast. My mother reached across the table to squeeze my hand, tears gathering in her eyes. It's really happening, she said. You're getting your life back. Not back, I corrected gently. Forward. I'm not trying to recreate what was. I'm building something new. The distinction felt important, not just semantically, but philosophically. I wasn't aiming to restore what David had taken, to return to the life we had shared. That life was gone, and in its absence, I was discovering the opportunity to create something entirely my own. This realization guided my next decision. With the townhouse under contract and my finances soon to be restored, I began searching for a new place to live. Not another shared space filled with compromises and jointly selected furnishings, but a home that reflected only my preferences, my needs, my vision. I found it in a modern loft conversion in Capitol Hill, an open-concept space with exposed brick walls, industrial windows, and a rooftop terrace overlooking the city. It was nothing like the traditional townhouse David and I had chosen, which had perhaps been the strongest point in its favor. The building had once been a printing factory, and something about its transformation from industrial space to personal sanctuary resonated with my own journey. "It's perfect," I told the real estate agent after touring the property. "I'd like to make an offer." The timing aligned fortuitously. My offer was accepted the same day the funds from David's hidden domestic accounts were restored to my control. The symmetry felt appropriate. Money he had stolen now financing my fresh start, his attempt to destroy my future instead becoming the foundation for its reconstruction. The day before my scheduled return to work, Sophia called with an update on the legal proceedings. David's attorney had officially accepted a plea deal. 8 years in prison with possibility of parole after 5, followed by 3 years of probation, full financial restitution, and a court order preventing him from working in financial services or management positions upon release. "It's a substantial sentence," Sophia explained. "The judge took into account the premeditated nature of the crime, the timing to coincide with your surgery, and the elaborate measures to conceal the funds. The prosecution pushed hard on those aggravating factors." "And Vanessa?" I asked. "She received a lesser sentence in exchange for her cooperation. 3 years, likely serving less than 2 with good behavior. She's also required to make restitution for her portion of the stolen funds, though her liability is significantly less than David's." I absorbed this information, searching my feelings for the vindication or satisfaction I might have expected. Instead, I found a quiet closure, not an emotional crescendo, but a gentle conclusion, like closing the cover of a book whose story had run its course. "There's one more thing," Sophia added. "David has requested to see you again before beginning his sentence next week. He says he has something important to tell you that can't be communicated through attorneys." The request stirred no anxiety, no dread, no anticipation, just mild curiosity. "Did he indicate what it's about?" "No, and you're under no obligation to meet with him. After everything you've been through, no one would question your decision to decline." I considered the options. A final meeting held no appeal, yet refusing felt like allowing David to maintain some small power over my choices, the power to make me avoid or fear confrontation. "I'll see him." Briefly. 2 days later, I returned to the courthouse, this time alone by choice. I had considered bringing Sophia or a family member for support, but ultimately decided against it. This final encounter was mine to manage independently, one last exercise in reclaiming my agency. The meeting room was the same as before, small, functional, institutional. David appeared different, the designer suit replaced with standard prison attire, his usually meticulous appearance now marked by the realities of incarceration. He looked up when I entered, surprise registering briefly at my solitary arrival. "Thank you for coming," he said as I took the seat across from him. "I wasn't sure you would." "What did you want to tell me?" I asked, keeping my tone neutral. He seemed to study me, taking in the confident posture, the absence of my cane, the calm self-possession that had replaced the wounded vulnerability of our last meeting. "You look well," he observed. "I am well," I confirmed simply. "Is that what you wanted to tell me?" A faint smile touched his lips. "Always direct. I've always admired that about you." He leaned forward slightly. No, that's not why I asked you here. I wanted to tell you that I've signed the divorce papers your attorney sent. No contests, no negotiations, no delays. It should be finalized within the standard waiting period. The information was welcome, but hardly seemed to merit a face-to-face meeting. You could have communicated that through Sophia. He nodded acknowledgement. True, but there's more. He hesitated, seeming to choose his words carefully. When I retrieved the documentation from the safe deposit box for Detective Reyes, I removed one item. Personal, not financial. Something I thought you might want. My wariness increased. What item? David reached into his pocket and withdrew, a small velvet pouch, sliding it across the table toward me. Your grandmother's ring. The one you thought was lost during our move to the townhouse. I found it when we were unpacking but kept it hidden. I was planning to sell it eventually, but I never did. I stared at the pouch, memories surfacing. My maternal grandmother's engagement ring. A delicate Art Deco design with a modest diamond that had meant more to me than any expensive jewelry David had given me over the years. I had been devastated when it disappeared during our move, searching frantically before ultimately accepting its loss. You let me believe it was gone, I said, the old hurt unexpectedly fresh. You watched me search for weeks. He had the grace to look genuinely ashamed. I know. It was cruel, especially knowing what it meant to you. He pushed the pouch closer to me. I can't undo that, but I can return it now. I made no move to take the pouch. Why? Why keep it then? Why return it now? What purpose does this serve for you? David seemed taken aback by the directness of the question. No purpose, no angle. Just... He sighed, a sound of genuine fatigue. Just one small thing I can make right in the midst of everything I've broken. I studied him carefully, looking for the manipulation beneath the gesture. But for once, David's expression seemed transparent, regretful, resigned, lacking the calculated charm that had once been his constant mask. After a moment's consideration, I reached for the pouch, opening it to confirm the ring was indeed inside. The familiar platinum setting, the diamond flanked by tiny sapphires, exactly as I remembered. I closed my hand around it, the metal warming against my palm. Thank you for returning this, I said finally, slipping the pouch into my jacket pocket. Is there anything else? He shook his head, then hesitated. I am sorry, Emma. Not just for getting caught, not just for the consequences. For the betrayal itself. You deserved better. The apology, simple, unadorned by excuses or qualifications, sounded genuine. Whether it actually was, I couldn't be certain. But I found, somewhat surprisingly, that it didn't matter. David's sincerity or lack thereof no longer held power over my emotional well-being. Yes, I did deserve better, I agreed, rising from my chair. And now I'm making sure I get it. As I turned to leave, David spoke once more. You'll be all right, won't you? Without me? I paused at the door, glancing back at the man who had been the center of my world for 7 years, now reduced to a footnote in my continuing story. I already am. 2 months later, I stood in my new loft, surveying the space that had been transformed from empty industrial shell to personal sanctuary. Furniture chosen solely for my taste and comfort. Art selected to please only my eye. A kitchen arranged according to my preferences alone. The freedom of it was exhilarating, not just the absence of compromise, but the presence of authentic self-expression. My professional life had similarly flourished. The London expansion project had evolved from initial strategy to active implementation, with my trip to the UK now scheduled for the following month. Dr. Patel had given full medical clearance, pronouncing my recovery remarkably successful at my final follow-up appointment. The financial restoration was nearly complete as well. Through Detective Reyes's persistent efforts and the detailed documentation David had provided, almost all the stolen funds had been recovered from their various hiding places. The offshore accounts had proven more challenging, but not impossible, to reclaim. My phone chimed with an incoming text, Sophia confirming that the divorce was officially finalized. The notification brought no sadness, no nostalgia, not even particular triumph, just a quiet acknowledgement that a necessary transition had been completed. I crossed to the expansive windows overlooking the city. Seattle spread before me like a canvas of possibilities. The evening light caught the water of Puget Sound in the distance, transforming it into a sheet of hammered gold. I opened my grandmother's ring box, placing it on the windowsill where the fading sunlight made the small diamond sparkle. The doorbell rang, interrupting my moment of reflection. I crossed the open space to answer it, finding Marcus and my parents on the threshold, arms laden with takeout bags and bottles of champagne. "Surprise housewarming," Marcus announced, pushing past me with his typical casual energy. We figured the official divorce day deserved some celebration. My mother followed, pausing to embrace me tightly. "Is this okay? We should have called first." "It's perfect," I assured her, genuinely pleased by their presence. I was just standing here thinking about new beginnings. My father entered last, taking in the space with appreciative eyes. "You've made this place your own," he observed, noting the careful arrangement of furniture, the strategic positioning of lighting, the gallery wall of black and white photography I'd begun collecting. "That was the goal," I replied, helping Marcus unpack containers of Thai food onto the kitchen island, a space that reflects only my choices. "And what excellent choices they are," my mother said, running an admiring hand over the textured blue sofa I'd selected as the living area's centerpiece. "This place feels like you, elegant but comfortable, thoughtful but not fussy." We settled. Around my dining table, a reclaimed wood piece I'd found at a local artisan studio, and Marcus popped the champagne with characteristic flourish. The cork shot across the room, prompting laughter as it narrowly missed a table lamp. "A toast," he proposed, filling our glasses. "To Emma, who turned catastrophe into opportunity and emerged stronger than ever." "To Emma," my parents echoed, raising their glasses. The simple gesture, family gathered around my table, celebrating not just the end of a difficult chapter, but the promising beginning of a new one, filled me with unexpected emotion. These people had been my foundation. When everything else crumbled, offering support without smothering, advice without dictating, love without conditions. "I couldn't have done this without you," I said, meeting each of their gazes in turn. "Any of it." My mother reached across the table to squeeze my hand. "You did the hard part yourself. We just provided the cheering section. Sometimes that's exactly what's needed," I acknowledged. Knowing I wasn't facing it alone made all the difference. As dinner progressed, conversation flowed to lighter topics. Marcus's new coding project, my father's garden experiments, my mother's book club. Selection. The easy familiarity provided perfect counterpoint to the significance of the day. Life continued, ordinary and extraordinary simultaneously. After they left, I found myself drawn back to the windows, the city now illuminated by countless lights, against the darkened sky. My phone buzzed with another message, Alex checking whether I'd received the final briefing materials for the London trip. I sent a quick confirmation, then set the phone aside, preferring to remain present in this moment of completion and commencement. The journey from that hospital bed, confused, betrayed, in pain, to this point had been neither straight nor simple. There had been setbacks alongside victories, moments of doubt amid growing confidence. The physical healing had progressed, according to medical expectations, but the emotional recovery had followed its own unpredictable timeline, sometimes racing ahead, sometimes circling back to revisit wounds I thought had closed. Yet standing here now, I recognized that something fundamental had shifted within me. The woman who had awakened to that zero balance notification no longer existed, not because she had been destroyed by David's betrayal, but because she had been transformed by her response to it. In fighting to reclaim what was taken, I had discovered resources within myself I hadn't known existed, resilience more durable than I'd imagined, determination deeper than I'd recognized, clarity sharper than I'd experienced before. My grandmother's ring caught the city lights, the small diamond sending fractured rainbows across the windowsill. I picked it up, turning it thoughtfully between my fingers. This ring, nearly lost, deliberately hidden, finally returned, seemed an apt metaphor. For my own journey, what had been taken could indeed be recovered, but not without leaving its mark, not without changing form in some subtle but significant way. I slipped the ring onto my right hand, not the traditional engagement finger, but a new placement representing a new chapter. Its weight felt right, a tangible connection to my past that didn't diminish my present or constrain my future. The next morning, I woke early, energized by a sense of purpose that had been building steadily over the past weeks. My calendar notification reminded me of my first day back at the office without any medical or scheduling accommodations, fully returned to professional life on my own terms. I dressed carefully in a new outfit, a tailored navy suit that projected confidence without severity, complemented by a silk blouse in a vibrant teal that felt bold yet professional. As I applied makeup and styled my hair, I studied my reflection with objective eyes. The woman in the mirror looked different from the one who had prepared for surgery months ago, not just physically recovered, but somehow more defined, more present, more herself. The commute to Evergreen's downtown offices felt both familiar and new. I opted to walk rather than drive, enjoying the crisp autumn morning, the moderate pace allowing me to appreciate details of the city I had often overlooked when rushing between appointments in my previous life. Arriving at the building, I took a moment to appreciate its soaring glass facade before entering the lobby. The security guard greeted me with a warm smile and a welcome back that seemed genuinely pleased. In the elevator, I encountered a colleague from the investment division who expressed similar sentiments. By the time I reached our floor, I realized how many connections remained intact despite the turmoil of recent months. Professional relationships unaffected by David's betrayal, grounded in my own competence rather than my marital status. Alex met me at the door to my office, not my previous space, but a new corner office with views of both the city and the water beyond. "Welcome back officially," he said, gesturing me inside. "What do you think?" I took in the thoughtfully appointed space, ergonomic furniture that would accommodate my still occasionally tender back, state-of-the-art technology for the international communications the London project would require, even a small espresso machine on the credenza, remembering my preference for strong coffee over the watered-down variety available in the break room. "It's perfect," I said, genuine appreciation in my voice. "Thank you for this." Alex smiled, clearly pleased by my reaction. "You've earned it. The London proposal you developed during your recovery is already generating interest from potential clients." The board was impressed not just with the strategic framework, but with your ability to produce such comprehensive work during what most would consider a legitimate period of absence. His words brought unexpected warmth. During those long days of recovery, working on the London expansion had been as much therapy as professional advancement. A way to reclaim my identity as a capable, competent professional when other aspects of my self-concept had been severely challenged. "I'm eager to move it from proposal to implementation," I said, setting my bag on the desk that was now mine. "The team is assembled and waiting in the conference room whenever you're ready." He paused at the door. "It's good to have you back, Emma. Really good." As he left, I took a moment to settle into this new space, physically, professionally, emotionally. The view from these windows was different from my previous office, offering a perspective I hadn't experienced before. It seemed an apt metaphor for everything that had changed. I had lost things in recent months, a marriage I thought was solid, trust I had freely given, certain assumptions about my life's trajectory. But I had gained things too, deeper self-knowledge, stronger boundaries, clearer priorities, and perhaps most importantly, the visceral understanding that I could withstand significant trauma and emerge not just intact, but enhanced. David's betrayal, timed to coincide with my greatest physical vulnerability, had been calculated to devastate me completely. Instead, it had become the catalyst for a profound reassessment and reclamation of my life on every level. The recovery from surgery had paralleled a deeper healing, the physical pain diminishing alongside emotional wounds, both processes requiring patience, professional guidance, and my own determination to progress. My phone buzzed with a message. From the conference room, the team was assembled, ready to begin whenever I arrived. I gathered my materials, taking one last look at the expansive view before turning toward the door. This was day one of a wholly new chapter. Not a restoration of what was lost, but the creation of something entirely original. As I walked toward the conference room, I felt not just professionally prepared, but personally aligned with this new direction, this reclaimed agency, this hard-won freedom to define myself on my own terms. The pain and betrayal that had initiated this transformation would always be part of my story, but they would not be the most important part. That distinction belonged to what came after, the response, the recovery, the rebuilding. In the end, what David had intended as my destruction had instead become my liberation. The conference room door opened as I approached, colleagues rising to greet me with respect and genuine welcome. I stepped forward into this new reality, ready to lead not despite what I had endured, but because of it. Stronger for having been tested, clearer for having been forced to reevaluate, more authentic for having reconstructed myself deliberately, rather than by default. The woman who entered that room was not the same one who had gone into surgery months before. She was better, more resilient, more self-aware, more intentional in her choices. The journey had been painful, the cost significant, but the outcome was a life more genuinely mine than the one that had been taken from me. And that, ultimately, was the greatest victory of all. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up, just click and check them out.